So what I'm going to do now is walk you through the mechanics of setting up an Excel spreadsheet. For those of you who are familiar with Excel, you might find this rudimentary, and it's your choice whether to watch this video or not. For those of you who do not have much experience for Excel, this might give you a good introduction on how to set up a spreadsheet, particularly for the calculations of net present value, ROI, and payback. I'm going to use the cash flow statement that I developed for Module 6 as a jumping off point. I'm going to make a couple of points. First of all, I entered numbers as either positive or negative, meaning if it's money going out, it was negative. If it's money coming in, it's positive. And that makes some of the calculations just a little bit easier. So you can see expenses are all outflows, so those are all negative numbers. And benefits are all inflows, so those are all positive numbers. And then I calculated net operating inflow or outflow by simply adding the expenses plus the benefits. So if you can see, the formula says C10 plus C11, so adding a positive and a negative is the same as subtraction. So you can see the very same result. So net operating inflow is simply benefit minus expenses. Just for the sake of trying to understand inflows and outflows, I put the numbers in as a negative, therefore you add the two numbers. And similarly, I did that to the net cash flow, is simply take the net operating inflow and outflow and subtracted the asset purchases from them to come up with the net cash flow. The net cash flow is your net gain. And so again, everything is entered in as either a positive or a negative number, so the formulas, as you can see, are actually expressed as addition. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set everything up so that I can do the calculations of the present value of the benefit, net present value, ROI, and payback. So the first thing that I have to do is I have to enter in the discount rate. And I'm going to use a discount rate of 14%. And I'm going to add 0.14. Notice that it comes in as a decimal. Formatting is important, so I'm going to go up here to the number formatting, and I'm just simply going to express that as a percent. So it's 14%. And then I want to simply copy that over. So I just simply do copy. Notice I get this little squiggly line. I take my cursor and scroll over to where that is, and then I simply hit paste and paste, and voila, there we go. So now what I want to do is calculate the present value of the benefit. If you have your formulas handy, you remember that the formula is the net gain divided by 1 plus the discount rate raised to the power of the year. And notice what I did here is for the years I expressed them as a number in a cell so that I could use that as a formula. So what I do here is I simply begin my formula by selecting the equal sign, and then I'm just going to do the formula. So it's D14, which is my net gain or my net cash flow, divided by, and I'll hit the divided sign, and I'll type in paren 1 plus, then I'm going to use the cell reference. I'll click here, and then I'll close the parentheses, and then to raise something to the power in Excel, you use the caret. And the caret is the number, the shift key and 6 will give you the caret. And then what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to use this cell reference for the year. And if I click on the question mark or the check mark, there I get a number. I get the discounted cash flow of $500, which is $438.59, or we'll call it 60 cents. One of the things you'll notice, if you did this right, your discounted cash flow, your present value of the benefit, should always be less than your net cash flow. Remember the time value of money. And again, I'm going to, formatting is important, so I'm going to format this in currency. Notice I get this hash marks, right, which means the number is too big for the cell. Well, what I can do is, since I really don't care about seeing this in cents, I'm going to use this and I'm going to get rid of some of the decimal points and just round it to the nearest whole dollar. And again, I'm going to copy. And a shortcut you can do is, if you have a PC, you can go Control C and then highlight your cells and then Control V, which will give you your discounted cash flow. And again, let's do a quick spot check. You can see in each year the present value of the benefit is less than the net cash flow, which means that we're probably got the right number. Now remember, what I have to do is I have to sum these numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in order to sum the present value of the benefits for each year, I'm going to hit auto sum, and notice it automatically defaults to add the column. I don't want to do that. So I am going to hit the backspace key, get rid of that, and then I'm going to highlight the cells that I do want it to add, which are columns D through H, and then I simply hit return and I get the present value of the benefit. So there I have that intermediate number, that present value of the benefit. So now what I do is to simply calculate net present value. Net present value is the present value of the benefit minus the year zero initial investment. So in this case, since net cash flow is a negative number, I want to make sure that I do what I did before, and that is to add a negative number rather than to subtract it. So to begin my calculations, I simply hit the equal sign, I select my present value of the benefit, and then I simply add, in this case, the year zero initial investment, which is C14. I hit return, and there I have the net present value. So far, so good. Now I want to do is I want to calculate return on investment. Return on investment is the present value of the benefit divided by the net cash flow. I want to begin my calculations by hitting the equal sign. I take my present value of the benefit, divide it by the net cash flow, or my initial investment, and uh-oh, look, I get a negative number. Well, we know that it can't be a negative number, right? So what I'm going to do is actually put a minus sign in front of C14, which will then turn that into a positive number. Now, it did some automatic formatting for me, which I didn't want it to do. What I am going to do is I'm going to convert that to a %, and then I have a return on investment of 178%. Now, what we can do is we can calculate payback. And what we see right away is that this is a escalating present value of the benefit. So the present value of the benefit is not the same. So we can't use the formula to calculate payback. What we can do, though, is we can see that year one is not going to cover my initial investment. What I'm going to do is insert a row. And so I use cumulative PVB, present value of the benefit, for short. So what I can do is I can simply create a cumulative present value of the benefit. So what I do in the first year, it's simply the same as year one. And then what I can do then is make this formula the year two plus the cumulative year before that, 14. And now what I have is, if you notice, what it's doing is it's adding the cell above to the cell below. So if I simply copy that over, I can then copy that over here, and there we go. And what that does is, notice the two numbers are the same. That's a good thing. And what this shows is somewhere between years 3 and 4 is where the payback occurs. So what I'm going to do then is another little trick. I'm going to insert another row. I'm going to call this row year 0 recovery. So I will add that here. And what I want to do is to take the present value of the benefit in each year and add that to the net cash flow in year 0 to see when in fact it goes positive. So I would simply go this, that. Now here's a trick. What we want to do is we don't want this cell to change. So this is in Excel called an absolute reference. So if you hit F4, notice it puts those dollar signs between in front of the column and the number right up here. That means that no matter what I copy over, it'll always reference this particular cell. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do plus the cumulative present value of the benefit. I'm going to hit OK. Notice that it didn't recover much, but if I copy this over, Control C, copy over, Control V, getting closer, and then what I want to do is then Control V here, not quite there, so one more year. This is where it went positive. So it goes positive somewhere between the end of year 3 and the beginning of year 4. And if you remember, all I have to do then, so notice I have to recover 418. So if I simply just do this equals that's how much I got to recover yet in year 4. And if I divide that by the number in year present value of the benefit in year 4, and notice it's a negative number. Again, that's because I'm using a negative number. But so the payback here is 1, 2, 3 plus 0.31. So I'm just simply going to type 3.31, and that's 3.31 years is the payback, which if you were to do the formula, you would come up with a much different number. There you have it. There is how to set up your calculations. Once you have this set up, once you have all the formulas put in place, you can do all kinds of things with respect to changing some of the numbers, some of the underlying assumptions. You could change the discount rate. You can change the benefits, the expenses, all these numbers that aren't formulas that represent your assumptions to see what your ultimate return on investment and payback is. And that will become really important when we analyze alternatives. It'll also become important when we do sensitivity analysis.